There we go. Sorry, I was having trouble going live there for a second. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me refresh this. Let's go ahead and post your questions there. It doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so go ahead and post them on there and we'll get them answered. On the right-hand side, you can see if you're on your desktop or your laptop, you'll be able to see the questions or the place where you can post your questions. Go ahead and post them right there. If you're on your mobile device, it may be below the video. So it looks like we have one. So typically what I do is I start with questions that were asked within an hour of the office hours starting. So that'd be 8 a.m. Eastern time. In this situation, we don't have any questions to be answered. Now, Ed's questions, those were from yesterday, but it looks like Charlemagne, I believe that's how that's pronounced. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing Charlemagne isn't on here. And that's part of the reason why I start with those questions is because, most likely those people are going to be on here because they got the reminder that office hours are going to be starting in an hour. And, they came to post their questions so they can get them answered first. But Charlemagne says, if I tend to pull or hit iron straight and slice driver, what am I doing wrong? Well, what's going on is that you're most likely coming over the top and swinging out to in with your driver and with your irons. Because basically a pull is the same issue. When you are pulling or slicing, your club path is moving out to in. So basically you have this club, it's kind of moving in this direction. It's moving, if you're a right-handed golfer, the club head is moving to the left. Now, the difference between a pull and a slice is that when you slice it, your club face is open to that club path. So my club path is moving left. My club face is open to that. So my club face could still be left, but not as left as the direction that my club path is pointing. And when you pull, the club path is in line with the direction that your club path is moving. So maybe with your irons, and this is fairly typical, maybe you're able to get those, you're more easily able to get that club face shut. And with your driver, you have a little bit harder time getting that club face to close down. Timing is a little bit different. It's a different shaft. It's a longer club. There's all kinds of variables that could be going on there. So the way to fix that is to just go and work through our Never Slice Again course. Get that club working from the inside. You'll get to where you can hit a hook. The best way to fix any of a slice or a pull is a push, right? A push or a hook. So get to where you can swing more into out, hit those push shots, and then also get to where you can swing more into out and get the ball hooking. And that, especially with your driver, if you're slicing your driver, get to where you can hook the driver. Get the face closed to your club path, meaning get the club path moving into out with the face closed to that path, and you'll fix that. And then at that point, all you have to do is ease off of that to hit better shots. So I recommend going to our Never Slice Again course, working through the drills there. To get to the course, it's very, very easy. Click on the house icon at the top of the page there. That will take you to the homepage. When you scroll down the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses on the website. Never Slice Again is going to be about halfway down, but that course is going to be all about getting you to hit that hook, get that ball, or getting that path more into out to get rid of that slice and that pull. All right, so it looks like we got some questions posted on here. Let me actually zoom in so I can actually read it. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. I got to zoom the page so I can actually read what's on here. All right. So David A. says, I just did the week 1 20-minute distance fix indoor lesson and found that I could turn very far back after exhaling. But as I reached the peak turn, the ball moved out of the frame of my glasses, causing a visible jump and then completely behind my shoulder. I guess I need to bend over more steeply to get my shoulder down and maybe get neck more flexible to avoid the glasses issue. So yeah, what may likely be happening is that when you're turning back, you may be turning back with your shoulders very level. So when your shoulders are level, it's hard to see the ball, right? So we need to make sure that we're turning back and we're a little bit steeper with our shoulders. That's going to do a couple things for us. One, that's going to allow us to get that big shoulder turn and be able to look down and see the golf ball. And two, it's going to help us get our hands up higher. Because if I'm flat like this, my hands are low. If I'm steeper with my shoulders, my hands are higher in relationship to my body. So I'd recommend getting to where you're feeling more steeply with it. So when you go back and maybe you do the catapult drill, put the club across the shoulders, right? Get that shoulder angle to be steeper as you're going back, and that's going to help you with that. Now, as far as the flexibility in your neck, you can work on some things with that. Doing some neck exercises. There's the one where you kind of go all the way and kind of roll your neck. That can help a little bit, but only go as far as you're physically capable. I don't know how much. I'm not an expert in how much you can be able to move your neck and things like that. But I'd recommend checking out mytpi.com for maybe some stretches and things like that to help with neck mobility if that's an issue. Because, yeah, if you can only turn your neck, because typically you should be able to, ideally, what you should be able to do is be able to turn and put your chin on your, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you should be able to turn and put your chin on there without opening your mouth. If you're opening your mouth, that's cheating. So if I were to do that, so you can see I can get my chin on my shirt. So if you are coming down and you can't get here, or if you have that you may have a little bit of a limitation there in your neck mobility, and going to mytpi.com, there are some exercises on there where you can work on your neck mobility a little bit. And also, if you wanted to work with a fitness professional or even a chiropractor to get you in there, you can search their website for TPI certified medical professionals as well as fitness professionals to be able to do that. So in the meantime, we don't want to lose complete sight of the golf ball. You want to keep your eye on the ball, so you may need to shorten your turn a little bit. Usually when you actually swing and hit the ball, you will do that naturally. But get as big a turn as you can get while still being able to see the golf ball. If the glasses are an issue, maybe consider contacts. It may make things a little bit easier for you. I actually play golf without my glasses. My vision isn't so bad that I can't see the golf ball, but things are a little bit fuzzier when I don't have my glasses on. So usually I do play without them or without contacts or anything. I imagine someday I will need to get some contacts to be able to play. But yeah, I typically don't play with my glasses on. That can be an issue if it's getting in the way or something like that. If you were to look at your swing on video, look at yourself on video doing this drill, you would most likely say that this is kind of getting level at the top instead of being angled down just outside the golf ball. That's ideally what you want. So if you do that drill, the catapult drill, put the club across your shoulders. Don't cheat. Don't have it like this. Have it socket to socket, right high up there on the shoulders. Don't have it here low on the shoulders or on the chest. We want to have it really high up there on the shoulders. It should be going right across your collarbone is where it should be. And the reason for that is that when we turn back, we want to get a representation of how much our shoulders are turning. If I put it down here and I go like this, look what I can do with my arm. That's not giving me an indication of how much my shoulders are turning. I'm cheating it. I'm getting a false representation. So put that nice and high on the shoulders and have it level on the shoulders. Don't have it like this, because if I turn back like that, it's going to make it seem like I'm angled down. Have it nice and level on your shoulders there, so that way when you turn back, you see exactly where that is pointing. And look at it on camera too to make sure that you're doing it correctly. If you're not working with an instructor and you're practicing and you're going through our program, sure that you're doing what you think you're doing. You've probably all heard, right, that feel isn't always real. So that is often the case, especially when you're doing things that you haven't done before. It's just like with anything, that you haven't really done before. It's good to have something there or someone there to tell you if you're on the right track. It's the whole reason why you go and get personal training for fitness, right? It's the whole reason why you maybe go get in-person lesser element swing reviews. But we provide these programs for you so that you can look on video and see what's going on, you can go through them to film your swing to get some sort of feedback. Otherwise, you're getting nothing. People always ask me, what's your favorite training aid? What's the best training? What's the best thing I can get? And I usually tell them, you already have it. It's in your pocket. It's your phone. Film your swing. It's very, very important to film your swing. I know it can be tedious and a pain in the neck to set it up and all that stuff, but trust me, it's way better to set that up every single time and to do 10 reps, seeing and making sure that you're doing it correctly, than doing 1,000 reps of doing it incorrectly. So make sure that you are filming your swing and seeing what's going on. I imagine if you filmed your swing, you would likely see that you're coming up and you're coming up pretty level and you can't see the golf ball. So get that to where that butt end of the club is pointing down toward the golf ball. Ideally, it'd just be like a few feet outside the golf ball, 4 or 5 feet outside the golf ball. Get that camera far away enough so that you can see exactly. You can draw a line. If you download an app like V1 Golf, there's all kinds of video analyzers out there. We recommend V1 Golf. That's what we use here at Top Speed Golf for unlimited swing reviews. And you can pause this swing at the top, your rep at the top, and you can use their drawing tool and draw a line all the way down the shaft and see where that's pointing. Ideally, it'd be pointing a few feet outside the golf ball. And if you're really struggling in your swing, especially with kind of standing up in the backswing, again, if you draw a line from face on, make sure you're doing the face on view. You draw a line on top of your head address, and you see that you go like this. You go above that line. You will never see a tour player go above that line at ever. Typically, they get lower in the backswing, lowered in the beginning of the downswing, and then they're pretty level through impact. So don't do it. The reason why I say don't do it from down the line is because typically it can kind of fool you, move this way a little bit, and that can make it seem like you're raising up when you're actually not. If you film it from face on, you're not moving toward the camera. You're staying, the same distance away. Excuse me. So you can clearly see if that head is going up and down or not. So make sure you're filming from face on when you're looking at that. But yeah, if you see that you're coming up out of it, you're most likely coming out of your shoulder tilt. Now, there's a great video on the website about maintaining that shoulder tilt throughout the swing, because you're actually going to be steeper with they're coming through. And a lot of people aren't doing that. A lot of people aren't getting steeper in the downswing because they're raising up through impact, and they're like that because they're really extending, so on and so forth. So there's a great drill for that. It's called the shoulder to shoulder drill. You can find this easily on the website. Just search the words shoulder to shoulder. We have a great search engine on the website. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a window where it says search this website, and it says search the words, 3 words, shoulder to shoulder, not the number end of the club as if there's a laser pointing out of it. Be tracing along the lower edge of the towel and coming all the way through in a full finish. And then doing that same thing in a practice swing and then trying it with a golf ball. That's really good to help you to stay in your posture a lot better. All right. So Dennis G says, does the catapult drill high hands, big shoulder, and big hip turn apply to hitting shorter irons too? Yes, this applies to all clubs. I will say, people do come to our clinics and ask us, we're telling them to get these big hip turns, these big shoulder turns, lift the heel off the ground, get everything as maximized as much as possible. And they're asking, does this apply to all clubs? It can apply to all clubs. It's really personal preference. If you look at Francesco Molinari, he recently had a resurgence in his career because he added distance from doing a lot of the things that we talk about in the 20-minute distance fix and what we do in our clinics. And he's lifting his heel up on wedges too, even short wedge shots. He like half swing, 3/4 swing wedge shots. He's lifting his heel up to get that full range of motion. What I will say is I don't do that. I get my heel a little bit off the ground with my driver, and then with everything else, I'm pretty much staying my feet on the ground. The difference is with your driver versus your irons. Your driver, you're trying to hit it as far as possible, right? If it goes 20 yards further than you would expect, most of the time, that's a great thing, right? Whereas with an iron, that's not the case. We don't want to hit it 20 yards further than what we normally would, unless we're doing that on a consistent basis. But let's say that your 8-iron is your 150 club. If you hit it 160, it's most likely going to be over the green or something like that. It's not going to be good. So we're trying to hit these clubs at a set distance. So I would swing at whatever speed you feel like you can do consistently. If you're someone who's really, really struggling with speed, like let's say that your club head speed is like 70 miles per hour with your driver, you're really struggling with distance, I'd be lifting your heel up off the ground all the time to get as much as you possibly can, because you're probably always hitting a long club into the greens. But if you're someone who's, not in that situation, not really struggling a ton with distance, really trying to get more distance with your drive, then I would, basically you want to do it within reason. You want to find that happy medium. Now, if you can consistently get the same club head speed from doing the same thing with that you do with your driver, and you can get the good results with your irons, then absolutely do it that way. That's what Francesco does, right? But if you're someone who's not in that situation, who needs to have a little bit more control, because it's going to be a little bit harder to control things when you're swinging that aggressively. With your driver, you can be a little bit more aggressive. You're just trying to hit a fairway. With an iron, you're trying to hit a green. The proximity is much more important. So you got to find that happy medium that works the best for you. But you can, but you don't have to. I would experiment around with it and see what works best for you. So John A, and go ahead and get your questions on here. Like I said, I'll be on here for 40 more minutes. Yesterday, we didn't get hardly any questions asked in the middle of it. And then at the end, I got peppered with questions. Today, I really have to go at 10 a.m., so I can't stay 5 minutes late and answer questions. So if you got questions, ask them during the office hours. Otherwise, it's a good possibility I may not be able to answer your question today if you try to squeeze them all in at the end. So let's try to even it out so we're not just sitting here with dead air and then have a ton at the end, because I do have to get going. I have an appointment here right after. I can do it, but to get it committed to memory. So it sounds like you can do it, but you just need more repetitions. It typically doesn't work that. So let's say that you're a slicer. Let's just say another situation that you're a slicer, and that means that you typically swing over the top and like that. Well, if I get you to do this one time, that doesn't mean that you're fixed. You're most likely just going to go right back toward what you're comfortable with. You've got to do a ton of swings where you're hitting a bunch of snap hooks. And actually, I would actually recommend that you would alternate hitting shots where you would hit a snap hook and a big old slice to give you the overall feeling of your club path, and that's going to help you to be able to control it even better. So you just need to get in more repetition. You can go to that stop early extension section by going to the house icon at the top. Click on that. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll find that stop early extension. Lots of great drills for helping with what exactly you're talking about, but it takes time and repetition to be able to fix something like that. It's not something that you just do once and then suddenly you're fixed. For example, I play with a buddy of mine all the time. He really, really struggles with hitting the ball on the toe and also with slicing. So he, sometimes he hits a straight shot because he hits it so far off the toe that the gear effect kind of straightens it out. It doesn't go anywhere. He has the same kind of club head speed as I do, but he hits it 50 yards shorter because he's not able to get clean contact on it. But basically, I tell him like, hey, I want you to swing, in to out, and I want you to try to hit it off the heel. And then once he did that, he smoked it down the middle. And then on the next hole, he hit a big old slice. And I said, well, what do you did you swing into out and hit it off the heel? He's like, oh, well, no. I was like, well, it's not something you have to keep on doing it, keep on thinking about it until it becomes second nature, until you actually start overdoing it. So in his case, he needs to keep on swinging into out and as much as he can and hitting it off the heel until he actually starts doing that, until he actually gets to where he's hitting these snap hooks and he's hitting it off the heel. Once it comes to that point, then he can ease off that feeling. Essentially, at that point, he's calibrated. So it takes time. I learned. I wish they worked out that I could just tell you what to do, and then you would just go do it forever. You just try it once, and then boom, you're fixed. It just doesn't work that way. You have to build your body. Players in the world, Nobody has a 100% efficient golf swing. Everybody's got deficiencies that they're on, but in order to change those things, it takes time and repetition. You have to build the neural pathways. I equate it to learning how to type, right? So when you're learning how to type, you're looking at the keyboard, right? And you had to point and peck, and you didn't know where the letters were. And eventually, you kind of figured out, here's where the letters are, and you were still pointing and pecking, but you were kind of figuring out where the letters were, and you got faster because you were memorizing where the letters were. And then eventually, you got to where you learned how to put your fingers on the keyboard and learned that every finger had a specific job to hit a different key. And then that was slow at first. You knew where the letters were, so you were getting better and better with that. And you got to where you were able to type, but it was pretty slow. You were still you had to think in each individual letter what you were doing, and sometimes you get lost in thought and forget the word that you're even typing. That's how slow you were going. And then eventually you got to where you were faster and faster, and then you got to where you didn't even have to look at the keyboard. You could look at the screen and type. And then you got to where you weren't even thinking in individual letters that you were typing, but into individual words. And then you got to where you were thinking in whole sentences instead of individual words. So I imagine, John, when you typed, I don't know how good a typer you are, but I'm just guessing that you're a good typer. I'm just assuming that you're a 70 words per minute typer, which I think is about average, I would guess, 65, 70. You probably don't even remember typing the word on before the word on after under on the downswing. I bet you don't even remember typing any of those individual words, and that's because it was second nature. You didn't you didn't have to think about what you were doing. It was just second nature. Your mind just did it. That's what has to happen. It's the same reason why you forget if you close the garage door, because it's built into it's ingrained into your movement, into your routine. When you pull out of the garage, depending on your seatbelt, you don't even remember doing that. Riding a bike, right? All these things, they become second nature. They become more intuitive. So it takes time. You just got to put in more repetition with it and get better with it. All right. So John G says, Quentin, any thoughts on the Power Stick training aid? Thanks. I am not familiar with that Power Stick. I'll look up your Power Stick training aid. Power Stick training aid golf. Let's see what we find. Here we go, thepowerstick.com. Let's check it out. Add 10 yards, 20 yards, even 30 yards to your shot. No, in a matter of minutes. Interesting. So I don't quite understand. Truth is, so it looks like it's got some sort of. I've never used one, so I can't. Comment on exactly if I think it's useful. It looks like, it's not a club. It's not something you're even hitting the ball with. So it may increase your club head speed without a ball, which is indirectly helpful. Because typically as your swing speed without a ball goes up, your swing speed with a golf ball will also go up a little bit. But it's not direct. I prefer working on it direct. I don't know if you know, John, but included in your membership with Top Speed Golf, we have a training pro distance. Number one is increasing your range of motion. So I'm looking at that. That doesn't look like it increases your range of motion, just based on what I see on the cover of it, basically. So increasing your range of motion, that's getting a big shoulder turn and getting your hands up higher, getting more vertical with your swing. So that's creating more space and time for you to accelerate the club. The more space and time you have to accelerate the club, the more club head speed you generate, the more distance you can gain. The second piece is sequencing. So as I can tell, that doesn't look to me, it may help with lag a little bit, maybe lag and release that could be helpful with that. Again, I haven't used the aid, so I'm not really sure, but it could be beneficial for that. But really, we have drills that probably would save your money at distance fix. You're doing something that's called neural adaptation. And I'm guessing if they're having you swing as hard as you can with that you can. And what that is doing is that's building the neural pathways to getting you more comfortable with swinging harder. Because as we go through, in fact, we had distance clinic this weekend, and we had people that were swinging in the 90s, and they got to where they were swinging in the hundreds. And toward the end of the clinic, even when they were really tired, they were swinging, about halfway between what their max was and what they started out with. And they said it felt the same as what they were coming out with. It felt comfortable, like they're comfortable playing swing speed raised up because they were getting more used to swinging harder. So that's just over the course of a couple of days. You do this over the course of a few weeks, that's really going to start to build on of itself. So it does look like that training aid can help with that, but honestly, you don't need that. You don't need that training aid to swing a normal golf club as hard as you can. Just swing the golf club as hard as you can doing the train. So that the 20-minute distance fix, all it requires you as far as training aids are concerned, it's not even required. We just find that people do better if they have this, is to get a swing speed radar or a swing caddy too, so that you can clock your club head speed. That's all we're asking you to do. And in fact, because you may hear some things in the 20-minute distance fix that maybe go against some instruction that you've heard in the past, but that's what's going to help you the most to get that club head speed up there and have lasting speed, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm not going to downplay this training aid. I've never used it. It could be really helpful. I never used it though. I typically don't use training aids very much. The training aids that I use, and this I'll just go into kind of my rant about training aids. So there's three types of training aids. There's training aids that fall into three different categories. There is the training aids that put you in a position, that force you to be in a position. So that'd be like, if you've ever seen the swing jacket, the one that you kind of put your arms through a sleeve and it keeps you connected or something. I don't know what it does exactly, but anything that kind of restricts you and stops you and actually puts you in a position, forces you to be in a position, that those are going to be the least helpful, because you're not actually learning how to do it. It's doing it for you. And that's not the way the brain works. It's not going to work so imagine if you were learning how to write and somebody took the pen and just wrote for you. Well, you're not learning how to write anything. It's not like they take their hand away and then you're going to be able to do it. It's, you have to learn how to do it. So those are the least helpful. And logically, it may seem like, oh, those would be really helpful because it's making me do it. But in reality, those are the least helpful. So that would be one club head or one swing trainer or training aid that is I would say is not very helpful. One category of it. The second category are the ones that give you feedback while you're performing the action. So it seems like that would be one of those, that power stick thing. It's giving you feedback during the action. So you're swinging it, and I'm guessing it has that thing that it's maybe whipping through there, and you set it to a power setting and you try to get it to go to the front. It's giving you feedback while you're performing the action. These can be helpful, but again, you have to be able to put that training aid down and pick up and be able to do it with a golf club without the use of the training aid. So you still have to learn how to do it on your own. So it's good to kind of give you the feeling of, okay, this is what I need to do. All right, now I need to throw this to the side. Another example of a training aid like that would be an impact snap, where you're going up to the top. It's got that ball on it, and you're going through impact. It's giving you feedback while you were swinging it, telling you, okay, this is where you want to be. Or maybe you don't feel the ball, and it tells you that you're flipping. So it's giving you an idea of what's going on. The other reason why I like the impact snap is that it's not a full club. You can work on this in the house. It's a great training aid to use in the wintertime to get the feel of what's going on. But those are great training aids to help you understand exactly where you're at and what you should be doing. And the portability of it is also nice with the impact snap. So those are the second tier. So those can definitely be helpful, but they're not as good as the second or as the third category of training aids, which are training aids that give you information after you have done it on your own. And then you base that feedback on how you can fix that. So an example of a training aid that is really, really good is your video. I just talked about video earlier. Video camera is leaps and bounds above most training aids. You have to perform the action. You have to do it. And then you look at it on camera. Again, we see if feel is real. We look at what's going on, and then we say, okay, well, I'm not doing what I think I'm doing there. Maybe you're working on shallowing the club, and you still see the club steep, even though it feels like maybe it's parallel to the ground. It's so shallow. So you may need to feel like you need to exaggerate that even more. Or maybe you're working on shallow the club, and you still see that your elbow is kind of out away from your body. Get that elbow working in. So video camera is really, really important. A swing speed radar, that's also an example of a feedback mechanism that you get after the fact. You perform the action, then you see instantly, I got this club head speed, so you know what I do is what I did helpful, or was it not helpful? Did my speed go up? Did it go down? All right, let me try that again. Let me see if I get a little bit more, so on and so forth. So those are great training aids. Training aids like your Flight Scope, TrackMan, those are great. Obviously, they're hard to, they're expensive, so they're not really great for consumers, but those are great training aids as well. So training aids that give you information, you have to perform the action on your own, get feedback afterwards, and then you learn as you're doing it how to get the right feedback, how to get the feedback that you want. That's going to lead to much better results. So if you're looking for a great training aid, those are the ones that I would be recommending. And keep in mind that training aids are exactly that. They're just aids. They're something to help you. They're not 100% needed, but they can be helpful, especially ones that give you feedback after the fact. Those are going to be the most helpful, and I would actually typically require that you use video, because you can be doing 100 reps and to be doing it wrong, and then it's not going to do you any good. You're just going to be wasting your time. So I would recommend using something like video, as well as swing speed radars. Anything that gives you feedback after the fact is going to be the best thing for you. All right, so Ronald P says, I'm having trouble getting enough backswing. Do you recommend straightening the right leg to obtain more turn? Absolutely. If you look at, you can definitely, I've heard some instruction in the past about how you have to keep that trail leg solid throughout the backswing. If you do that, that can limit you. Look at Dustin Johnson. Look at a bunch of tour players and see what's happening with their trail leg. Most of the time, you're going to see as they're going back, it's going to straighten out some. Now, you won't typically see where, like JB Holmes, for instance, he's straightening it out completely, but you're going to see some that straighten it out completely. You will see some that keep it keep it flexed, but I mean, you have to have a lot of mobility in your hips and so on and so forth to be able to do that. And probably those guys are also not getting the full range of motion that they could be. So go ahead and let that straighten out some. Now, the idea here is we don't want to get it. The reason why I think we hear instruction about why we don't want to straighten that out is because when we get it straightened out, maybe we kind of get it in a hyperextended position. We kind of get that locked up, and then we don't turn the hips in the downswing. So try to be really athletic with it, and kind of stay with a little bit of flex in there. So that way in the downswing, you can use that to turn. Or even if you do need to straighten it out completely to get your big hip turn, then get the feeling, make sure that you're athletic with it in the downswing, and you get that move, and don't lock it up and then slide. Get it unflexed very quickly so that you can, or get it unstraightened out very quickly so that you can start the downswing, get those hips turning in the downswing. Some other things that can help you, and I'll just keep this angle down. Some other things that can help you are turning in the backswing. Your trail leg is internally rotating. It's internally rotating. So what we want to do in order to ease up on that is turn that foot out so that you can rotate more in the backswing. So for me, I have a limitation in my hip as far as internally rotating. I have a hard time internally rotating. So for these, I can maybe turn my leg in. So if I go up to the golf ball and I have my legs completely squared off like this, I'm going to have a hard time turning my hips back. I'm only going to be able to get 20 degrees or so because my leg can only internally rotate about 20 degrees. So what I have to do is I have to rotate my foot out in order to get that. So a good kind of rule of thumb, your average hip turn on tour, if you're kind of going for a good number, would be about 50 degrees. So for me to get about a 50-degree turn, if I take 50 degrees minus 20 degrees, which is 20 degrees is the amount that I can rotate my foot in, that's my internal rotation of my leg, then I get about 30 degrees. So that means that I should rotate my trail foot out about 30 degrees. So I rotate my trail foot out, and then in the backswing as I'm going up, I'm going to lift this heel off the ground. So if you watch from this angle, if I'm going up, I'm lifting that heel off the ground. And what that does, if I keep this heel on the ground, it's going to kind of act as an anchor for my hips. If I lift it off the ground, it frees up the hips a little bit more and allows me to get more turn. So I would make sure that you're doing those two things. Turn this trail foot out, do that test that I just talked about, turn that foot in, see how much you can turn that foot in when you lift it straight up. And again, we're trying to rotate that foot in. So it's not a really great angle from here, but I'm trying to rotate. You can see I'm trying to rotate my foot in like that. And I can only do about 20 degrees. If you can do 45 degrees, then you may be able to set up with a square stance, but that most people can't. Internal rotation. So get that opened up, get to where your heel's coming off the ground. That will free up your hips so you can get a better turn. So that's what that's what I'd recommend doing for sure. So Richard G says, having tendency to hit thin, little heavy, then a little heavy because it's flipping at impact. But when I try to keep my hands down or pronation, I then pull ball with a little hook. So it sounds like you're just turning the handle down. You're probably not. You're probably still flipping. You need to look on. Again, we need to see on video to see what the reality is. I know it's pain in the neck to set up the video, but you got to do it in order to see what's really going on. So what you're likely doing is when you're coming through and you're typically flipping, right? What you're likely doing is when you're trying to stay down is that you're turning this handle down, and now you're just in a big snap hook is most likely what's going on. So what you need to do is work through the move course. There's all kinds of reasons why you might be flipping. The main reason is most likely because you're coming down steep in transition. So what I mean by that is if you look at your swing, the downswing, this club is in a steep position. It's in a more vertical position. So when it's in this position, what has to happen is that I typically got to stand up to get that club to come back down on plane. Otherwise, I'm either going to continue to kind of come down and chop down into the ball like a foot behind it, or I may come over the top or do a combination of those two. So what most players do, because we're good players and we're good athletes and we're trying to get that club to come back down on plane so that we can hit a good shot, is we'll stand up so that the club head, so we're here, we're in this great position, but the club is steep. But since it's steep, I have to get this club on plane. So what I'll do is I'll stand up. That raises the handle, that drops the head. Now I'm swinging from the inside where I want to be, but I'm standing up. So because I'm standing up, I have to flip the club to get to the golf ball. I can't have forward shaftling, otherwise I would swing over the top of the golf ball. And intuitively, you're not going to do that. You're going to hit the golf ball. You're going to flip so that you can square the face and hit the golf ball. So what we need to do is we need to get this club shallowing out, and get it squaring earlier so that we can continue to rotate and stay in our posture through impact. So the reason why we need to shallow it out is so that the club's on plane. We don't have to make a compensation and stand up. And the reason why we have to get the club face squaring earlier is because if you stand up, you're used to squaring up the club face like this. So what that means is my trail wrist is flat, my lead wrist is cupped. I don't have any forward shaftling. I'm flipping the club through. I'm used to squaring the club face like that. If I keep those same wrist angles, but I have forward shaftling, what happens with the club face? My club face is wide open. So what do I have to do? I have to turn that handle, get that club face squaring earlier to square up the club face. Now look, I have my hands in front of the club head. This is forward shaftling, and now I have a square club face. If I put this club back down, look at my wrist angles. My trail wrist is in a bent back position. My lead wrist is in a flat or even slightly bowed position. So you have to change that in the downswing. So it's shallowing, squaring the face earlier, and now I can rotate into impact. That is essentially the move. You most likely need to work on the move, Richard. It could be other things. You could just be casting. You could be shallowing out the club, but just casting. And then this is the way that you square up the face. It could be that you just feel like it's more comfortable for you to stand up and you end up flipping that way. There's all kinds of reasons. It'd really be impossible for me to know exactly what's going on without seeing your swing. But most likely you need to work through the move course, get that club shallowing out in transition, get that club face squaring earlier, so that you can stay in your posture and get forward shaft lean at impact. If you're getting those hooks, it's most likely because you're just turning the handle down. You're still flipping. So if you look at this, if I come into impact and normally I have the flat wrist, cupped lead wrist, but then I turn that handle down, but I'm still flipping. Look where the face is. It's slammed shut. So that's most likely what you're doing there. So work through the move course. Again, if you'd like help with that, I do offer unlimited swing reviews. I don't have spots available right now, but join my waiting list so that when spots do become available, you'll be on a list of people that get emailed, and it's first come, first serve. So we email the waiting list first, and then we email everyone else on the website when spots become available. So be on the lookout on your email for that. But if you want to be in the group of people that get emailed first, join my waiting list so that you can be notified right away. You can find, well, first of all, you can find the move course. Click the house icon at the top of the page. Go down the home page, you'll see the move course. You'll see the list of all the courses. You'll see the move course there. And then if you want to sign up for my waiting list, or maybe there is a spot available, every now and then somebody will cancel or duck out. Winter's coming on, so a lot of people are packing up the clubs for the winter. Some people are practicing during the winter, but yeah, you can join the waiting list, or if there's a spot available, take the spot if you're wanting to join up. But click at the top of the page there above the video. It says learn more. I think it says about working with Tassi golf instructors or something like that. If you click on that, that will take you to that. But if you're not on this page, you can always go to at the top of about any page on the website. You can click get a review, and that will take you to the same page, and you can scroll down on there. Well, first of all, I would look through all of that so you can see kind of what swing reviews are all about, and then see if it's the right fit for you. You do need to have a smartphone. You do need to download an app that is completely free, and so on and so forth. It works. It's very, very easy to use. And then you'll want to scroll down. You'll see me and Robin there, and you can join my waiting list or his waiting list, whoever you want. You can join both if you want, if you're just looking for the first spot available. But if you're wanting to work with me specifically, click on CB. All right, so Stacy B, half lean, and bowed wrist at impact. I can consistently do it during a practice swing, but when I put a ball down, I go back to flipping. So it's all about how you square the club face. You're most likely coming down steep. So when you come down steep, you have to, so I would check that and make sure that you're not coming down steep. So if you're in this kind of position, in order to hit a good golf shot and to get this club to work down on plane, you have to shallow out the club. And then, or you have to drop, have to raise up to shallow out the club. And then when you have any choice but to flip in order to hit the golf ball, in order to hit a good shot. So that's most likely what's happening. It's hard for me to know without seeing your swing. But that's most likely what's happening there. Now, one thing I will say, whenever you're working on a swing change, especially a big swing change like getting forward shaft lean, anything that's happening in the downswing for sure, whenever you're working on these things, you have to get these positions by any means necessary. You're going to need to sacrifice contact at first. But once you get more comfortable with that position, then it will be easier to hit the golf ball. You're changing the way that you're hitting the golf ball. Your body doesn't know how to do that yet. It basically has to build a new skill set as to how to hit the golf ball when being in a certain position. So make sure that you're in the position first. And then once you're getting in that position, so basically what's going on, what most likely happens, what typically happens when people are working on forward shaft lean is that they'll be able to get the forward shaft lean with the golf ball there, but the club face will be wide open. So they're doing the push the hands forward and shallow the club and body rotating and all that good stuff, but they're not doing the square the face part. So it takes some time to get that. So what most likely will happen is you'll have some sort of tendency. So you'll be able to get the forward shaft lean, and basically you got to get that forward shaft lean by any means necessary. Do not be afraid to fail as far as the golf shot is concerned. Your number one priority is to get that technique down. Then once you get that technique down and you're seeing the hands in front of the golf ball, take note of what's going on at impact. So maybe it's face wide open. That's typically the case, is face wide open. And if that's the case, we got to get that handle turning down. So on the next rep, you're going to do the same thing, get the hands moving forward, but you're going to turn that handle down as you're coming through impact to get that club face to square up. Or maybe it's, maybe it's a thin shot. Maybe you feel like you're hitting it higher on the face. Maybe it's a heel strike. Maybe it's a shank. Maybe it just takes you to feel like you're hitting the ball more on the toe. So usually there's going to be a tendency of some sort there. And on the next swing, you just got to try and fix that tendency, whatever it might be. So like I said, if it's a heel strike, you're getting that forward shaft lean and you're trying to hit it off the toe. Once you get it to where it's a center strike, maybe it's maybe you're leaving the face open, but you're hitting it with a center strike. Then it's getting that club face, turning that handle down, getting that club face to close. So make sure that you're getting, when you go from getting it without the golf ball in a practice swing, and I guarantee you, most likely what's going on, I almost see this all the time. People send me practice swings of them getting forward shaft lean. Look at your practice swing on video. Look at your club face. See where it's pointing. I would almost put $20 down that club face is wide open. I would almost, and it's hard to see the club head sometimes on video, so you can look at your wrist. So at address, and the reason why it's hard to see a club head is because it's moving so much faster, but your wrist is moving a lot slower than your club head at impact, so you can typically see. And it's really, really easy if you wear a glove and it has like a logo on it. But basically, you can look at what your hands look like at address. So at address, my hands look like this, right? So the glove logo would be right here. So you can kind of see my watch. I can't quite see my watch face here. My watch face is pointing toward the target. Well, at address, you're setting up with a square club face. So if I come into contact and you can see my watch, that's an indication that my club face is also pointing in the direction of my watch. So maybe you can't see the club head or tell if it's open or not, but you probably see the logo of your glove and it's pointing way out that way. So take note, your wrists should be pointing, the back of your wrist should be pointing in the same direction at impact than it is at address. If you're setting up with the square club face, obviously, and that'd be a good indication that you're squaring up the club face. So if you're doing that, then you're doing the right practice swing. And the other thing I would say is that when you're doing your practice swings, I would exaggerate it as much as possible. So what that means is not just trying to get in your practice swing, not just trying to get in this great, perfectly impact position. I would actually literally try to get in as much forward shaft lean as possible. So that would look something like this. I'm coming down and I'm getting actually try to do that in your practice swing. Exaggerate it, really make the swing with the golf ball seem a lot easier. So that's a great tip as well to take, because I've worked on this stuff too. It's not easy. It takes time. A lot of times swing, should the shoulder forward at the top of the backswing, should the shoulder angle, club across the shoulders, going just past the ball, equal the spine angle leaning forward. I'm sorry, Richard, that doesn't make any sense to me. Should the shoulder angle, so you're saying the shoulder angle, meaning I'm guessing you're saying club across the shoulders, right? So socket to socket, that's going just past the golf ball. Should it equal spine angle leaning forward? I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what that means. I'm having a little trouble. So we got a couple minutes left, Richard. If you could spell that out in a little different way, I can try to help, but I don't know. So your spine angle is like this, and your shoulder angle is like this. It's not equal, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I'm getting quite exactly what you're asking. Because at the top of the swing, your spine angle is going to be something like that, right? And then your shoulder angle is going to be like that. So that wouldn't be equal. It'll be roughly perpendicular, if that's what you mean. It'll be pretty close to perpendicular. I mean the spine angle at setup. Okay, so you're saying that, okay, yeah. So, it's going to be roughly about the same. Yeah. So you're going to be maintaining your spine angle. It might be a little bit lower, meaning as I'm going up to the top, typically in your best ball strikers, you're actually lowering your spine a little bit. You're lowering a little bit. You'll see they'll go my hip down to my knee down to my ankle. Those angles will be relatively the same throughout the swing. Now, your leg can straighten out, like I talked about a little bit, and your ear you'll typically see the ear get a little bit lower. But if you're getting way out of those angles, that's an indication that there's, you may have some consistency issues or getting back down to the golf ball where you want to be. So those angles are going to remain relatively the same. Like I said, then you can straighten out the hip a little bit. You can straighten out that leg, and then the ear can go below it. But if that ear is going above it, and that's basically the main bad thing. If the ear's going above that line, if you draw a line from the ear down to the hip here, the center of your hip, that's going to be an issue, because when you stand up, that just means you have to go way down in the downswing to be able to get in a good impact position, and it's just difficult to do. It's going to be really difficult. So yeah, basically that's maintaining as you're going up the top. That spine angle is almost exactly the same. If anything, it's actually getting a little bit, you're bending down just a little bit more as you're going up to the top in the best ball strikers. It's not a lot. Like I said, typically you're seeing your best ball strikers lower about 1 to 3 inches as they're going up to the top. So what that means is at address, if you draw a line on top of their head, and I challenge you, go to YouTube, go watch go to the World Golf Rankings, and then go to YouTube and look at their swings from face on. What you're going to see with every single one of them is that they'll start at address. You can draw a line on top of their head, and you'll see that they'll actually get lower in the backswing. Now, don't be fooled if it's someone holding a camera and they're kind of moving the camera all over the place, because that obviously that makes a difference. But if it's a camera angle from a broadcast or something like that, those guys are on fixed things. Those are going to be pretty still, and you're going to be able to get a good indication off of those. So I take a look at it. You're going to see how they're lowering 1 to 3 inches in the backswing. All right, so it's 10 a.m. on the dot. Like I said, I got to get going. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. I'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Hopefully, you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.